Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to load up the drums. Well, actually, um, I'm going to change the global tempo to about 140. I'm going to do this one in double time. So I'm also going to make this a 4-bar loop. Okay, we're there. And now I'm going to assign some samples. So I'm just going to stick with the samples I used earlier. I was using the samples from Mars 606 kit just because I've never messed around with 606, 707. I might not have even ever messed around with 909s. Usually I use like Lindrum, 808. I think I've used the CR78 before. But yeah, let's go ahead and load up that 606. Got wave files individuals. Yo, shout out to Homeboy who gave me that recommendation. So I was actually using the wrong tab in the directory. That's why the waves weren't showing up. So that was my fault. All right, let's get a bass drum. I like number 2. Okay, cool. And I like these MPC 60 affected. Cool. I like number 2 again. .606 again. Individual hits. MPC 60. Let's do the closed hat. Okay, now I remember from the last one that instead of doing an open hat, they have a cymbal, and I'm just going to rock with that. So here's the cymbal. Yeah, I rock with this one. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool sounding. Okay, let's get some toms. So start with the high tom. Get another tom, and then we'll be done. I'm going to keep this one simple and quick. Unless some unforeseen circumstance pops up again. So let's get a low tom. Okay, so I got all the drums I need. Let's go back. Cool, let's try it. All right, let's overdub it. Cool. And one more overdub. Here we go. Perfect. Let's move on. Let's get a bass sound. First, I'm going to name this drums. Okay, now we're going to move on to the second one. We're going to make this a plugin. Earlier today, I used the bass line. Let's see. Okay, I know what I want. Let me just go ahead and name this bass line. And here we go. All right, there goes my bass line. And now I've got to add another plugin. And there we go. Let's check out this electric piano. Okay, there we go. Here we go. Simple. Okay, let's make us an audio track and let's load up some guitar. Okay, let's switch the input to input number 2. Number 1 is obviously my microphone. That's not going into the MPC. That's actually just going into the camera. But I'm splitting the audio fuse Rev 2's inputs in between the two. There we go. We're good. I'm going to add a second guitar now. Name it Guitar 2. Okay, change the input up. Okay, let's track that. I'm going to crank up the input just a bit. I have no idea what happened there. All right, that's a little bit quiet, so that's where we'll start as far as livening all this up. So let me turn off that metronome. Add the compression. I'm going to slam the input. Fast attack. Slower release. Okay, change up the threshold. Nice and smooth. I like it. That's kind of cool. I know this is going to need some more output. Oops. There we go. Now it should be able to compete with the rest of the track. Let's check it out. Okay, now we're going to go to the first guitar and we're going to do this one up the same way. So I'm going to solo it. Use a regular amp sim for this one just because. Kind of cool there. Okay, let's mess with this one. So right, let's mess with the bass. Okay, let's just check it out. Let's see how it sounds. Okay, overall, pretty good, pretty good. If I'm honest, what I did earlier, which was similar, I was kind of trying to make something along the same lines of what I did earlier before the MPC 1 Plus froze. I liked that a little better, but anytime that you've done something once and you go and try to recreate it, it's going to be like diminishing returns when you hear what you make the second time around. But this is something that I could do something with. At least I made some music today. That's the most important thing. I'm trying to make some music just about every day. And then I'm trying to hold myself to finishing that stuff. So pretty fun. Always a pleasure. It always surprises me how good the sounds built into the MPC are. If you're thinking about getting into MPC music production, I would say just do it. Because like, even though you hear people complain about the analog hit of those drums and everything like that compared to the old MPCs, reality is there's people making chart-topping hits on these things now. And at the end of the day, if you get to a level where that actually matters, well, for one, most people are going to dump their stems out of this and mix it somewhere else. And you could always go through some outboard gear to get the sound that you want. And two, if you're at that level, you're actually going to have a mixing professional mix your music for you anyway, at which point that's not going to matter in any way, shape, or form. So for me, that argument just doesn't make any sense. And I'm coming from making music, like I've been making music since I was in high school, recording since I was in high school, first recording myself on a Fostex 4-track recorder, and then recording in garage studios, all the way up to like recording in studios that use tape and that use all analog gear. I mean, like I've recorded it with Rob Campanella, who recorded a good deal of the Brian Jonestown Massacre stuff. I've been at sessions at Larrabee Studios with Terrace Martin and all kinds of stuff. And I'll just tell you, like, there's nothing wrong with the MPC sound. The sound that you get out of it is a pretty neutral sound compared to some old analog gear, but there is actually a point to that. I think some forms of music actually want that, especially now. And if you're making a form of music that doesn't want that, the reality is if you get an older MPC, you don't have these instruments built into it. So then that means you need to go and spend money on instruments. A lot of times the routing and everything is more difficult. So you're going to have to learn how to do that. And at the end of the day, I mean, I've got an ART tube preamp, and I used to run a lot of things through that when I was recording, when I had my rehearsal space / studio over in Glass Hill Park. And that would add a lot of saturation to whatever I chose to run through it. Sometimes I'd run a couple of drum mics through it. Sometimes I'd run the bass through it and just go direct without the need of a bass amp and miking it, mic position, and all of the challenges that come with miking instruments. So with my experience recording on the analog side and recording on the digital side, I think you can get whatever sound you want. And I have some friends who work for studios and produce for like Apple Music and things like that. And they're similar to my age. I'm 38 years old. And we've had these conversations, and they tend to believe just about what I believe where this stuff is concerned. So especially if you're a beginner, you're getting into music production, it doesn't even make sense to concern yourself with all of that stuff, because you're not even really going to have the ear training to be able to distinguish between like a more saturated sound you know, the extra knock that you can get. And I mean, you can put limiters and compression on everything. There's a whole rabbit hole to go down, but I just think that you cannot beat the MPC One Plus. It's led me to make music every single day. And, you know, I've been making music my entire life. I started making hip hop in a really crude fashion when I was 5 years old. I come from a musical family. If you look at the photo of me from the last song that I put out, Memories, that was released November 24th. That's a picture of me in my uncle Richie Love's studio in Omaha, Nebraska, just toiling with his gear. I think I was 6 or 7 years old in that photograph. At the most, I was 8 years old, because I think the shirt that I was wearing I got from like a Juneteenth thing that they would do every summer in Omaha. And I remember that was like the summer when I was 7 or 8 years old, because I know I went back to elementary school with like 4 of those t-shirts, and it was just such a nice summer that I wore one of those t-shirts every day, and I was getting teased by kids who thought I was wearing the same exact shirt every day. But all of that aside, you can't go wrong with these things, and you're going to evolve as you make music anyway, and you're going to add gear. Like, I'm constantly adding gear to my setup, and I'm not by any means the most professional musician, but hey, I do what I do, and I think I can do it to a certain level of proficiency. And I've never had any complaints about the sound of this thing. And once I bounce it out to Logic, I can always get whatever sound I want anyway. I've got a bunch of Waves plugins and Universal Audio plugins, and you can reamp stuff, and you can do all kinds of stuff. I've got tube amps and tube preamps and all kinds of stuff you can send it through to get it to sound the way you want. But the funny thing is, a good friend of mine who mixed the song for me, he didn't run it through any of that stuff when he mixed. I watched him, and he made it sound nice and analog. We're talking a rock song that he mixed for me. It's called Memorial. It's on my Norman Woods music channel. So if you search Memorial by Norman Woods on Apple Music or on Spotify or Deezer or any of that, you'll find this song. It was recorded to tape at a studio over in Silver Lake, and it was mixed in Pro Tools by my buddy Nate, and he did a great job. He's mixed and recorded, engineered like for signed artists. Like, he's amazing, and he didn't use any of that stuff. He used plugins. So yeah, and he's like he's working every day. I can't even get in touch with that dude. He's so busy. It'll be 3 days before he calls me back when I'm annoying him with my mixing questions, or just how I put the chorus on the bass. If you watched this, that's a trick that I picked up from him to widen the bass a little bit. Yeah, and he's just using plugins to mix that stuff. So learn to use what you have. If you're interested in learning to work with the MPC One or the MPC Live or the MPC X, I would say get it. You're not going to be disappointed, especially if you're a beginner. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but do it. I freaking love making music on this thing. Love, love, love making music on this thing. And I have a bunch of different ways that I can record music, and I overall choose this thing. When I didn't have this thing, I was like, for lack of a better word, depressed, because just working with this thing is such a breeze once you get some type of workflow down, that I was just like, let me try to use Beatmaker 3, or let me try to make the drums in Logic, and then I'm getting latency in Logic when I try to tap them in using my Keylab Essentials. So let me go in and mess with the buffer size. Let me go mess with this. Let me go mess with that. Where with the MPC One Plus, I don't have to do any of that stuff. I plug in my MIDI controller, and it works, no latency with all the plugins. When I'm working on the drum pads, there's no latency. When I tap it in, it comes out the way I want it to. Using the Audio Fuse Rev 2 with it is easy, and these preamps sound amazing. If I want to use my 2 Notes Revolt guitar preamp with it, I can do that. It's fairly simple to get that to work as well. Yeah, I'm gushing over this thing, even though it freezes on me sometimes, even though there are problems which I thought were hardware problems that turned out it was something that I was doing wrong, which I'm willing to admit because I'm not an MPC expert. I've only been using them for a couple of years, and I'm coming from playing actual physical drums But I love this. You know, that's why it's kind of what's led me to be performing solo without a band behind me. Which I played a show at a festival, Happy Sundays Fest, over the summer, and I'm playing at Silver Lake Lounge January 23rd. If you're in LA, you should come. But yeah, it'll be me, my guitar, and some backing tracks. That's enough. I'm gonna get out of here. Peace.